Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines, coming to you from Denver, Colorado. Josh Lander, joined as always by my guy Nate Weitzer, holding it down on the East Coast. Another big fatty NBA slate on a Wednesday night for us, as we've got a bunch of teams playing tonight. I got a couple videos out there for you to cover a bunch of these games and some player props as well. Nate's got his great article up on playpicks.com with some best bets and player props, so make sure you check those out as well. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to FDPicks.com or DKPicks.com and find those listings in your area. We're about to jump into Nate's Celtics hosting those Toronto Raptors, who've had their number a bit lately, but we'll see what Nate and I think about that one. Nate, let's jump into that full slate of lines for Wednesday night tonight.
Yeah, I mean, looking at this Celtics game, it's holding steady with Boston -2 at home, which is great. I think I will just grab that and hope it does not change too much for all you guys after you hear the reasoning why the Celtics should cover. The total continues to drop. It's now 206.5, which is absurdly low. I guess the Celtics' recent defensive performance has to do with that. Quickly whipping around the rest of the games here in the association. Wizards -3 at Cavs. Nets -9 at Magic. Bucks +3 at Knicks. Pistons +4 at Rockets. We got Hornets +5 at Grizz. Thunder +4 at Pelicans. Mavs +3 at Bulls. Kings +1 at Spurs. Blazers +5 at Suns. Nuggets are +3.5 at home without Jokic against the Pacers. The Warriors -7 at home against the Wolves. Episodes up on both of those last two. And then the Lakers are +4 dogs against the Heat at home. Yes, you said the Raptors had their number. Sure, they had their number on that particular night on the second game of the season for the Celtics. Their home opener came out and got embarrassed, flattened, lost by 32 points to these Raptors. I think that's why you're getting so much value right now. I think that's why the Celtics are only -2. Yes, Jaylen Brown is out too, and he is a fantastic player who I don't know if you'd rather have him or Tatum, but the point is when one is off the floor, the other plays more freely because they just seem to be an awkward fit together at this point. Tatum in that first game without Jaylen goes for 32 points on 12 for 19 field goal shooting after struggling mightily in just about every other game. Also look at Dennis Schroeder stepping right in there, getting 20 points, playing nearly 40 minutes against the Mavericks. Kind of a similar matchup tonight against a Raptors team that loves to stop you in transition, force you to score in the half court. I would look at both those guys scoring props for that reason. Particularly Schroeder, a little more value at 15.5 points. Tatum still not necessarily a guy you want to bank on. But as far as the Celtics covering or beating Toronto, they had won their previous 4 against this team, right? And they'd been shootouts, first of all, which is interesting that the total's now down at 206. You know, we saw this last night with the Bucks and Sixers where things might indicate under because of recent results or because of who's out. And then it drops enough that you get value and it's over. Look, the previous 3 games between these teams averaged 241 points. The Celtics have been struggled at home defensively, but I'm not. My preferred bet is not the over here. It's just the Celtics to win because they struggled in a lot of areas up until that whole players only meeting and Marcus Smart calling out his team. Since then, they've covered 3 straight, won 2 games. They have the best defensive rating in the NBA and 3rd best net rating in that span. And now they face a tired Toronto team that's, starting a road trip here. That's 3-16 straight up with a rest disadvantage since last year, and 4-14 on back-to-backs. I mean, they played on Monday, not last night, but still, I think the C's with the rest advantage are going to win this game.
Yeah, that's fair, and I think you're trying to get ahead of the C's really breaking out and showing that they're a team to be messed with in the East right now. And it's interesting, and this might be for another episode. The first thing that caught my attention when you said what you said at the top was, who knows who's better? Who do you rather have between Tatum and Brown? But I think one thing that's being illustrated, at least on the offensive side of the ball for the C's, is they might not be that complementary to each other on that side of the ball. I think, look, we know what Jaylen Brown is on defense, and Tatum has at least the athleticism to stay in front of guys when he really gives that effort on that side of the ball. But when you're on offense, it's been too much your turn, my turn. Neither of these guys, as we talked about, are quite the playmakers that you would want from two of your best players as much as they are pure scorers. And Tatum, really in the mold of that Kobe Bryant way of sort of taking on offenses, it's what he's doing. He's getting to his spots. He's going downhill when he can, and he's pulling up over shorter guys when he needs to. And that's fine, but that sort of your turn, my turn doesn't really work when it's him and Jaylen as of late. So I feel no problem picking up that over. And then when you look at Jaylen being out as well as their best defender, by far on the wing, feel really good about the other team being able to score at this point, right? And I know we've got a prop that we want to talk about with Scotty Barnes, and that's sort of where we're looking in terms of how Toronto can attack Boston, especially now that Pascal Siakam's back. You've got another sort of versatile player that can come out and attack a sort of a Boston team that has been better on defense for sure, but they still don't really have any that sort of low post presence to sort of deter anybody once they get into the lane, in my opinion. So over is what I would eye here. I would like to take Boston. I know they've sort of hurt us here in a couple times this year, but I do think that they are trending in the right direction at the very least. And this was always going to be a team that probably needed a little bit of time to pull things back together. This season with the new coach coming off a pretty disappointing season last year, and the addition of Schroeder, who has picked it up a lot recently, and that's also probably why we like his props at about 15.5 without in terms of his points, without Jaylen Brown around. This is going to be who's the only scorer on the second unit, and we'll probably get a lot more time with that first unit, right?
Yeah, and there's some juicy player performance props for either Schroeder or Tatum to get theirs and get the Celtics a win. Interesting to see Tatum 30-plus points at plus 300 at FanDuel. I think he can get there in this matchup. Schroeder, just 15 points in a win, is plus 210. I think both those guys will just be leaned on offensively, and I think the regression is just coming for Toronto, who started out just absolute gangbusters on defense. They still have some great personnel on that side of the ball. I mean, the only reason this game is not a 100-unit bet for me is because it's the Raptors, because they know that they're so familiar with the Celtics, because they're probably looking at this exact same trend as I am and saying, you know what, this Celtics team over the last 3 games, they're a lot different. This is not going to be the same situation as we walked into in Boston when they were just completely dysfunctional. So I think it'll be a close game. I think if you want money line and those bonuses, you might get more value for the Celtics to pull it out. But at just 2 points, I think they can cover it. And I think they can cover their team total for sure, because that regression for the Raptors, they're now 26th in defensive rating over their last 2 losses against the Nets and Cavs, and 25th in net rating in that span. And the rest advantage, just has been a huge thing for this team. The disadvantage, and when they lose, they start to lose a lot. They're 16-32 after a loss since the start of last year.
Really good stat there. At some point, we're going to have to talk about those Cavaliers as well, and see how for real they are. That was a nice one over Toronto. But at any rate, that is all the time that we have for today. Y'all make sure to like and subscribe to that page. Got a bunch of videos up on this big fat NBA Wednesday night slate for you. So until we see you next, happy betting.